Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? We have got some big news topics to talk about today, guys. It's going to be a good one. All right, especially one massive news story, one that we've been waiting for forever to get a definitive answer on how it was going to shake out one way or another. We finally got it. It is finally here. It is finally time. It was made official today. Microsoft has completed their acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Now, obviously, there's still going to be some stuff that they've got to do. There's still a whole bunch of incorporating the studios and, the leadership and all of that that's going to take many, many months to iron out. But it is now a done deal. It is done. It is complete. Microsoft owns Activision Blizzard King. We got the news, I want to say like overnight here in the US. Obviously, if you're in a different part of the world, it will be a different time. But late last night / early morning over here in the United States, we got the news that the CMA had approved the deal. That was the last major roadblock, was the CMA. And then a few hours later, Microsoft themselves come out and officially announce, that's right, that they have acquired Activision Blizzard King. I'm sure there's going to be a ton that you guys want to talk about with this. What does it mean for future franchises? What does it mean for PlayStation? What does it mean for Xbox? What does it mean for the industry as a whole? I'm sure there's going to be a ton of opinions like there's been for a very long time ever since this was announced. And we're going to talk about all of it. Another major news story that came out is that Sony has officially announced the, long rumored discless PlayStation, how should I say this? The attachable disc drive PlayStation 5 model that had been rumored forever. Tom Henderson continues to just absolutely nail everything PlayStation hardware related. This essentially confirms PlayStation 5 Pro for next year. For anyone that hasn't been keeping track, Tom Henderson has basically been, over the last year or so, revealing all future PlayStation hardware products. He broke the news on the InZone line of products. He broke the news on the DualSense Edge. He broke the news on the PlayStation, handheld. He broke the news on this now new model PS5. And he's also said PS5 Pro is coming next year. Considering everything else he said, there's no reason to disbelieve PS5 Pro now. So that's pretty much locked in. This new model is 30% smaller, so it actually is kind of a slim. There was a lot of wonder if this new model was going to just be essentially the exact same thing in terms of dimensions, like maybe slightly different. But no, it's about 30% smaller in volume. That's a pretty decent decrease in size. So it's going to be, they're not calling it the Slim, but it's basically a PS5 Slim. The physical edition stays the exact same price. The digital edition actually goes up by $50, which is pretty surprising, but Sony seems fully focused on profit margins right now. So we can talk about that if you guys want, what it means for PlayStation 5 hardware sales, will it have an impact, and really anything else you guys want to discuss. As always, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be a few ways to do that. Of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions and comments as I possibly can per stream. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, there's going to be two different ways to do that. You can do the super chat method, where you type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats as soon as they drop. The other way to guarantee that I get to your comment or question is going to be by becoming a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 a month, and basically you get priority in the chat, right? I guarantee that every channel member gets at least one comment or question highlighted in the stream. Usually they get multiple highlighted because that's the main perk. All right, everyone, let's get rocking and rolling. I'm excited to start talking. We're going to do some polls. We're going to do all of the good, fun stuff that we always do. And this is a major news week. So I'm pretty excited for today's chat. Should be awesome. All right, we have a super chat kicking us off right off the top. Johnny G 22, great to see you, Johnny G, dropping a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, that's very generous. What's up, Benji? Another weekly stream. Let's go. I'm so excited to be back. Love doing these streams. Finally, Microsoft completes the acquisition, and I wonder if new Call of Duty games will be day one Game Pass, and also we need an update on your Cyberpunk playthrough. So first of all, in regards to new Call of Duty games day one on Game Pass, We know that Modern Warfare 3 is not going to, because, Activision made a tweet essentially confirming that just a few days ago, which was a pretty big indicator that this acquisition was about to close. The fact that they were even talking about that sort of stuff publicly means that, days ago they were preparing for this thing to close. So they flat out said no plans for Modern Warfare 3 to be hitting Game Pass. I suspect that's absolutely going to be true. Now, we know that Sony had marketing rights for Call of Duty, I believe, through 2024's Call of Duty. So I believe next year's Call of Duty would be the last one as part of that marketing deal for PlayStation. However, there was some stuff that was discussed during the FTC case that it looked like possibly Sony was willing to give up that marketing deal early because of all of this stuff with the acquisition and everything. So we'll have to see about next year's Call of Duty. That one is actually up in the air because we don't know put it this way. If Sony keeps their marketing deal, like if they keep the contract and don't terminate it early, next year's Call of Duty will also not be a day one Game Pass drop. However, we're not sure if Sony is going to actually end that or not. So next year's Call of Duty, a bit up in the air. It just depends on what happens with that marketing deal. Modern Warfare 3, we know, is not going to be day one. It does indicate, though, that maybe many of the older Call of Duties will be able to hit Game Pass fairly quickly. That was one thing a lot of us were wondering, was how extensive was this marketing deal on Call of Duty with PlayStation. We knew that it forbid like the most recent Call of Duty games from hitting services like Game Pass, but we didn't know, does that mean all Call of Duty? Does that mean, just Call of Duty within certain years, certain windows? I think there's some indications from Activision that the older Call of Duties are probably rocking and ready to go. So I would suspect you'll see older Call of Duties start hitting the service over the coming months, and 2024's Call of Duty just up in the air. It all depends on what happens with that PlayStation marketing deal and what they decide there. In regards to my Cyberpunk playthrough, game's absolutely incredible. I'm actually on the final mission of the story, and so I actually am now just doing lots of side stuff because I got to the very last mission. I know that you can keep playing the game after you beat it because I looked that up. I didn't look up the ending. I didn't spoil myself, but I was like, can I keep playing after I beat this game or not? Turns out you can. You just basically reload into an earlier save, which happens with a lot of games. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go do side stuff before I finish this main story because I'm loving the game so much. Game's absolutely incredible. If I was reviewing it like the current version, like I said last week when I was just praising Cyberpunk like crazy, I'm someone that never played older Cyberpunk when it was all messed up and broken. I'm just talking current Cyberpunk in the state it's in right now. It might be my game of the year if this would have released this year. It's been Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. As of now, that's still my game of the year. But if, let's say Cyberpunk theoretically would have never launched back in 2020, but this was its launch and it was in this state, this quality, it probably would have been my game of the year. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is probably my favorite thing I've played in 2023, and I've played some absolute bangers this year. So that should tell you how much I'm loving it. I absolutely adore it. I love the universe. I love the characters, the acting, the visuals, everything. I love the game. Even the gameplay is fantastic. All right, I think that was the only super chat, so let's hit some channel members. Joseki channel member, what is up, Joseki? Great to see you, just like every stream. Hello, Benji, what's up? First of all, sorry, but this is my last month as a sub for a while. No problem at all, Joseki. Then finally, this Microsoft Activision deal is over, and we can finally go back to Bloodborne to PC rumors. That said, as a Switch, and probably next Switch owner, I'm looking forward to see what this deal brings to the table in the future. I might buy a new Call of Duty for the first time since the OG Modern Warfare 3. Well, Joseki, never sweat it about having to end being a channel member at all. Like I always say, no one should ever feel pressured or obligated to be channel members, to do super chats, any of that sort of stuff. That's just a way to help support me and the channel, man. So, dude, no worries at all, Joseki. And in regards to, yeah, listen, I'm ready for the Microsoft and Activision Blizzard ordeal to be over. A lot of people that cover games I know have loved this news story keeping going because it's good for numbers. I'm just being honest. It's good for engagement. But I've been ready for it to be over because it just felt so dragged out. We've been doing this for so long, almost 2 years now. I think it was 20 months or something. I was getting over talking about it, especially because there's so much toxicity around it. Now that it's a done deal, I think we can talk about some of the more potentially exciting things about the deal. Listen, there's going to be people very, very upset that this went through. Totally get that. There's going to be people that are still upset even moving forward. But now we can at least start talking about, instead of the argument being like, will they, won't they, we can start talking about what's Microsoft going to do with all of these studios now. What is the future of Call of Duty? What is the future of Blizzard games? Are we going to see Spyro and Crash and all of that and Tony Hawk come back in a big way? So that'll be very, very interesting. Joseki, in terms of this going through for Nintendo fans specifically, this is pretty great news for Nintendo fans. Now, PlayStation fans are probably the community that gets hurt the most by this deal, depending on what happens with game availability for Activision Blizzard. Obviously, Xbox benefits the most, but to be honest, I think this deal is probably a net benefit for Nintendo fans because Activision Blizzard didn't have that great of output on Nintendo platforms anyways. Did they put some stuff on there? Sure, right? Like you saw the Crash trilogy hit there. You saw the Spyro remasters hit there. It wasn't that Activision did like no support for the Switch, but I wouldn't call Activision like the best, the best third party on the Switch. And the fact that Call of Duty is going to be on Switch 2, which, Phil himself basically straight up confirmed in court, that's nothing but good news for Nintendo. I mean, they have basically the first or second biggest shooter in the world, hitting their platform that it's been just skipping for a very, very long time. Nintendo's probably absolutely thrilled with this because, hey, as a platform holder, I don't know that Call of Duty going to Switch 2 means it's going to sell, 20 million more consoles than Switch was going to in the first place, but that's not the real benefit for Nintendo here. As a platform holder, they get a cut of every copy of Call of Duty that's going to be sold on Switch 2. And I'm sure they're going to sell a lot of copies of Call of Duty on Switch 2. So, hey, that's a lot of money in Nintendo's pocket. So I'm sure they're pretty thrilled with this going through, if I'm being honest. Probably very, very good news for Nintendo. Sony is the one who might be the odd man out here. It just depends on what, how extensively Microsoft decides to put games on their platform. Wow, guys, we have some real generosity dropping in the chat right now. I want to cover this really quick before I get to the other stuff. I love seeing this, giving back to the community. SplitEnd89 gifted a membership, which went to Jose Taco. Jose Taco is now a channel member. Congrats, Jose Taco. Thank you, SplitEnd89, for giving back to the community. And Highlander also gifted 5 memberships. Shout out to Highlander, guys, gifting back to the community. Highlander being very generous, giving out 5 of them. We've got Logical Error 007 getting a gifted membership. Jacob Novick getting a gifted membership. Captain Crunch got a gifted membership. Bomangi got a gifted membership. And Perfect Shogun. You guys are all channel members thanks to Split End and Highlander. So you guys get priority in the chat for the next month. Right? That membership lasts a full month. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Shout out to those two guys. Two of the kindest, most positive people in this stream are always Split End and Highlander. And that is amazing. Highlander001 also had a 5 super chat. Benji, I have a different opinion. We have no idea when the new contract for 10 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation. I think it came out in the documents, or there was like some sort of report on it or whatever that that it ends in 2024. Like 2024 is the ending of that agreement. Oh wait, do you think you mean you're saying the 10 years of Call? Yeah, but that's not going to be a marketing deal, right? Basically, the deal that was signed, I get what you're saying. You're saying that new deal that was made to guarantee Call of Duty on PlayStation. Keep in mind, though, that was not a marketing deal. There was no wording anywhere from Phil Spencer that would be a marketing agreement. There was no wording anywhere from Sony that would be a marketing agreement. It was basically just guaranteeing the game on the platform. It was the same deal that they made with Nintendo. I'm sure, there might be a few minute differences between them, but trust me, Microsoft would have absolutely not said in that contract that we're not going to put Call of Duty in Game Pass for the next 10 years. There's no way they would have made a deal like that with Sony, especially when Microsoft was the one in the strong suit there and not PlayStation. That just would have been, business negligence. That would have been malpractice, if I'm being honest, on the side of Microsoft. That would have been business malpractice to do that on their end. So trust me, man, Call of Duty is hitting Game Pass day one as soon as that deal is over. That was a huge part of why they bought Activision Blizzard. In fact, when regulators asked Microsoft this in court, like they basically admitted as much. They were like, yeah, I mean, obviously getting Activision Blizzard games day one on Game Pass is part of this thing. Now, of course, they mentioned King, how getting mobile was a big deal for them. And I think that was truthful. I don't think that was a lie. But no, as soon as that marketing deal is over with Sony, these games are coming day one to Game Pass. Not a doubt in my mind. Not a doubt. That was a huge part of this purchase. But I totally get it, and thank you for the Super Chat, Highlander. All right, back to some more channel member questions. Oh, and Ken B has become a channel member. Welcome to Benji-Sales supporter. What is up, Ken B? I think you've been a channel member in the past, so thanks for coming back, Ken B. And Ken B says, how soon do you think ABK games will start to be added to Game Pass? They have a lot of IPs, so do you think that they drop a bunch at once or spread it out? Ken, I think I saw someone post that Bethesda titles started hitting as soon as a week after the closing. I don't know if it'll be that fast. It really just depends. The thing with Activision Blizzard is I think some stuff's going to start hitting very, very soon. I think you might see some stuff hitting within the next few weeks, right? I don't know if it'll be next week like some of the Bethesda games were, but I would say sometime in the next few weeks you'll probably start seeing it. But I do think that some of this is going to be spread out because the reality is Activision's got a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got a lot of licensing. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. A lot of licensing stuff, right? Like there's the Transformers games. You know, there's probably a lot of music licensing issues in some of their stuff. Contracts and how those work out in terms of availability on subscription services with some of their games. So we'll just have to see, Ken. I think you're going to see some of this start hitting very rapidly. Microsoft's going to want to try and get some of this stuff in the service as quick as possible to start getting that engagement with Game Pass up on these games. But some stuff may take a while. I would not expect instantly, you know, whenever this first drop is, that like 90% of the Activision games are just instantly available. Probably going to be a big chunk, and then, you know, more and more coming through as licensing deals and marketing agreements and all of this sort of stuff kind of pan out. That's what I would expect, Ken. But I think you'll start seeing some of it very soon. I'd be surprised if it's not until, you know, next year. I think you're going to start seeing some stuff very, very quickly. All right, more channel members. Joseki, PS5 price disc in Japan went from $49,980 to $66,980 harsh. Yeah, you know, the pricing on the PS5 worldwide has been so interesting, right? It's like the console now, you know, 3 years into the life cycle, in many ways and in many markets is more expensive than it was at launch. That is not something you typically see in a console gen, right? Usually it's the exact opposite. It's consoles get cheaper, or if they don't get cheaper, they at least maintain price. In many, many markets, PS5 just keeps getting more expensive. Pretty wild to see. Obviously, we know a whole lot of the reasons for this. The main factor being inflation. Like, that's the number one biggest factor on pricing for everything right now. But yeah, it's pretty wild, Joseki. Pretty freaking wild. And JCat's in the chat. What is up, JCat? Thanks for helping mod the chat. As always, great to see you, JCat. All right. See if there's any more. Highlander said Benji is worth it. That's so kind. Split in 89. Benji is so popular, even Captain Crunch watches his charts. That is hilarious. I don't know about being so popular, but that is super funny. Oh, by the way, speaking of Split End, yo, it is almost Alan Wake 2 time. This was a gift from Split End, the man. Had to have it on display here for the chat. Can't wait, dude. You guys know how excited I am for that game. Jacob Novick, to clear things up, Benji, the contract Jim refused to sign was for every ABK game for 5 years, but that contract he was signed actually for Call of Duty 10 years was for 10 years. Yeah, that's the one that we're discussing. But like I said, there's no way that would have included any sort of marketing. No chance. Logical error 007 old Call of Duty got the vulnerability, which can cause browser passwords to be stolen. It'll take time to patch those. Exactly. Yep. Some of this stuff's going to come very quickly. Some of this stuff's going to take time. Just, it's going to be spread out, guys. And then Jacob Novik says, Sekiro was in the trailer. Activision made it, but FromSoft published it, and Activision refused to own the IP. Yeah, I suspect that Sekiro will come to Game Pass, probably. It just depends. Microsoft does not own the Sekiro IP. As far as we know, if FromSoftware decided to make Sekiro 2, Activision or Microsoft would have no say in where that game goes because they don't own the IP. They just own the publishing rights for the first game. It depends on if there was some sort of contract with From during that they stated outright they'd never put the game in a subservice. But as long as there was no wording in the contract with From, that Activision originally made with From Software, as long as there's no wording on that, Microsoft should now have the rights to choose where and how that game is distributed. So I would assume that Sekiro will come to Game Pass. I would assume that. Split at 89, a week from Spidey 2 and 2 weeks from Alan Wake 2 this month, dude. Yeah, October's nuts, and yet I'm still just playing Cyberpunk. But I'm very, very, very excited to dive into Spidey 2 and Alan Wake 2. I mean, those are literally my two most anticipated games right now. So, yeah, 10 out of 10 hype. All right, let's hit some free questions. Let's get a poll rocking. What do you guys want to do a poll on? I love the polls. Someone tell me in chat. What do you guys want to do for a poll? Obviously something with Activision Blizzard King, but what do you want to see? Someone give me a good poll idea for this one. I'll hit a free question and wait for some poll ideas to pop into chat. Blazing Flame. Hey, Benji, do you think PlayStation will continue to expand their team/studios even after a new CEO is appointed? You read my question and made a poll but didn't answer. Can you answer now? Oh, I apologize. Yes, I would suspect they're still going to go for acquisitions. I've long said that I think that Sony ideally want one big purchase bigger than Bungie. That's what I've been thinking for a while, that Bungie wouldn't be their biggest purchase, that they'd go after one big one. What that would be, I don't know. But we'll have to see. I kind of think they have to, we're talking about PlayStation's output right now. That's been a common theme for a while because they've had so few showcases and so few first-party games announced that, that's been a big talking point for a while is when, Sony had some great release consistency early in this generation, actually. It was a bit of the inverse of what happened with Xbox, where Xbox started this gen incredibly slow with first-party output, and now it's starting to seem like that's starting to accelerate. Sony early on had a lot of big games hit the PlayStation 5, but now if you look at this year, we got to be honest, not a very strong first-party year for Sony. Spider-Man 2, I'm sure, is going to be incredible, but whenever you look at the year as a whole, there just wasn't a ton there out of Sony this year, and right now, we have to wait and see. But right now, 2024 is also looking not that full. So I honestly think Sony needs more teams as we get more and more into this, race for content and first party becoming so important. I keep making the argument. I think first party games are more important now than they've ever been in the history of the industry, considering, how fierce competition is, subscriptions, games moving all over the place, right? It's just becoming more and more important. And I think Sony does need some more studios. I don't know if they need to go out and buy, two giant publishers or something like that, but I do think they need more. Yes, I think they need more studios. So I assume that they think the same. I expect you're going to still see some acquisitions. I don't know if it's going to be 10 more studios, but yes, I do expect to see more acquisitions out of Sony. Yeah, 100%. Yoda Soda, hi, do you think Herman Hulst will stay as head of PlayStation Studios even when a new CEO is appointed? I would assume so, but Herman is so quiet that it's hard to know how he's doing, how things at Sony are going. You never hear anything out of Herman. It's a little weird. You know what I mean? It's just a little weird how quiet Herman Hulst is, in my opinion. And I really like Herman. I think the guy's done some incredible work at Guerrilla. I'm sure he's doing a good job at Sony. But like, you hear out of Jim Ryan when he was there pretty often, right? Even if it wasn't constantly talking to fans on Twitter or whatever, he would regularly do interviews with GamesIndustry.biz or, various other outlets. You'd hear from Jim Ryan semi-consistently. You hear from Xbox executives all the time. They're probably the most open. I mean, Phil, Sarah Bond, Aaron, they're all super active on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. They're always popping up all over the place. You just almost hear nothing out of Herman. Every once in a while, you get the rare interview with him, but not much. I would assume he's doing a good job. I would assume he's going to stay in his position, but you just don't hear a whole lot about him, like in general. So who knows? Maybe, for some reason he's doing a bad job, then maybe he would be let go from that position. But I'm going to just assume he's doing good because there's no reason to think he's not. I think we had some channel membership renewals. I think there might have been another super chat. Let's get down here and look at some of this stuff. We do. Highlander001 with a 10. I see a price increase for Ubisoft Plus going up with streaming of Activision games, especially if that's the only way to get new Activision games on PS5. I would hate that to happen. Yeah, that very well could happen, Highlander. Depending on how much they do with these streaming rights and how it works out and where they go, like, that's the weird part of this deal is that Ubisoft now has the rights for streaming specifically. Ubisoft does not have the rights for just like digital release or whatever. It's specifically the streaming portion, which was a weird thing for the CMA to push for, but whatever. Yeah, we'll have to see. But could a price increase possibly happen depending on where this goes, how many games are on it? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a possibility, Highlander, for sure. I mean, we're seeing subscription prices just keep going up and up and up, everywhere, whether it's media, right? Netflix and Disney Plus keep raising prices. We just saw a Game Pass price hike. The PlayStation Plus is getting a price hike. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if Ubisoft Plus also goes up in price. Thanks for the super chat. Jose Taco, channel member. Benji, will we see old Activision games like Transformers, Marvel's Alliance, and Spider-Man games on Xbox backwards compatibility? I would say it depends on the licensing on those. I would think Microsoft probably would have to sign new contracts. That's my guess. I don't know this firsthand, but I'm assuming that for those games to come over, they would probably have to make a new deal with Disney on like the Marvel stuff that you're talking about. And then Transformers, I think, is Universal, I think. So they'd probably have to make a new deal on that too. I would say it depends on if Microsoft thinks it's worth it or not. I would assume that those companies, these are old games. They're not getting much value out of them right now. So if Microsoft offers a compelling contract to put these games on Game Pass to these companies, then sure. I think this really comes down to that. If Microsoft's willing to pay for new licensing deals on them or not. That's really what it comes down to. So I don't think there's any other reason than that would prevent them. It's all going to be, but I do think it's a new licensing deal. Homersley Ford channel member, the fact that Sekiro hit 10 million is wild. That game was like at 3 million a couple years ago. No. Seems like Elden Ring gave it a massive boost. Some of my friends bought that game after Elden Ring. And this is why I keep talking about Sony is absolutely foolish if they don't bring Bloodborne back. Because From is a whole different beast than they were back when Bloodborne released. You're absolutely correct about Sekiro. 10 million for a game like that's absolutely incredible. Sekiro is not an easy game. For me, it's actually maybe the hardest FromSoftware game, which I know some people are going to heavily disagree with. But that was the first one that I just really struggled with it. It's all going to come down to play styles and how you adapt to it. But for me personally, I thought Sekiro was way harder than the Dark Souls games or Elden Ring. I'm sure for some people it was easier. But yeah, 10 million for it's fantastic. And again, if the only reason Bloodborne 2 doesn't exist is because something on Sony's end, we don't really know why Bloodborne 2 doesn't exist. From has made comments in the past that they might be willing to go back to it. If it's on Sony's end, they're foolish. If they're looking at how Bloodborne 1 sold and think that's how Bloodborne 2 is going to sell, they're just wrong. FromSoftware has become a completely different monster since Elden Ring. So that game should have been greenlit years ago, but we'll see. Jose Taco, do you think the Respawn teaser is Titanfall 3? I didn't see the teaser. There's been many reports that they've thought about making Titanfall 3 like multiple times. There's some evidence that Apex Legends is slowing down. EA themselves have kind of outright admitted it on earnings calls. Put it this way, would I absolutely love to see Titanfall 3? I think Titanfall 2 had one of the best single-player shooter campaigns I've ever played. Multiplayer was brilliant, but the crime is that Titanfall 1 and 2 were never as popular as they should have been. In terms of quality of those games should have been much, much, much more popular than they ended up being, which is a real shame. Those should have been huge hits because they're fantastic titles. Listen, I would love to see Titanfall 3. I don't know if EA will greenlight it, though, because I think that they would have some concern about how it would sell, because to be just completely frank, the first two games were not huge hits. Titanfall 1 did pretty okay, and then Titanfall 2 really underperformed compared to where it should have. So I'd love to see it, but I'm never going to say that it's like very, very likely, because I just think EA will look at that and be worried. And I know Apex kind of blew that universe up in terms of size, so I could definitely see Titanfall 3 doing much better than 2, but EA probably does look at it as a slight risk. All right, Hamish, this is a good poll idea. Poll idea, will Activision stay as Call of Duty only studio, or will they revive all old IPs? That's a good poll idea. Let's do it. So we'll say, will we see more diversity of games from Activision after the acquisition? Good poll idea. So in other words, right now, the Activision side, we're not talking about Blizzard here, because as he noted, Hamish, he said Activision, right? Out of Activision side themselves, we're not talking about Blizzard. Activision, let's be realistic, has basically turned into a Call of Duty only machine. Every once in a while, they release something else out of the Activision side, but it's few and far between. It is primarily Activision has just become a pure Call of Duty machine, and that's it. So that's the question. Do you think they stay as a Call of Duty only machine? Obviously, Call of Duty is not going to go anywhere. It makes too much money. They're going to still be focused on Call of Duty. But do you think we're going to get more? Do you think those Activision studios, those Treyarchs, those Infinity Wards, those Sledgehammers, that they might get some freedom to kind of make some other stuff too? Very good question. So yes, more non-Call of Duty games, or we'll just say no, Call of Duty machine keeps rolling. Good poll idea. All right, where are we at? Jacob Novick, channel member. Benji, it's been around 4 years of next gen, and look at what Xbox has accomplished. Xbox have bought 4 publishers: Bethesda, Activision, Blizzard, and King, and Phil wants Sega. Yeah, I know Sega was something they were eyeing. I can't see Sega happening. I've said it before. I think Microsoft's kind of locked out of publishers now. I could be absolutely wrong. I'm no law expert. There's no way I can predict what the CMA and FTC will allow. I do the research as best as I can as an outsider, but I'm not Hogue Law, right? I'm not someone that's an actual lawyer that knows this sort of stuff. But from an outsider's perspective, Activision Blizzard was so hard to get through. Yes, they got it through in the end, but it was so hard. And I know the argument's going to be, hey, Benji, Sega is way smaller than Activision Blizzard King, so it would be much easier to get through, right? Not necessarily. I think it starts to become a numbers game. I think as they get more and more of these big publishers, they're going to get more and more and more scrutiny each and every time on them, especially after Activision, right? They went out and bought, the biggest Western third-party publisher. Any other publishers after that, the scrutiny is going to be incredibly intense. So as I've said a bunch of times, Jacob, I absolutely expect Microsoft to buy more studios. I don't think there's anything preventing them from doing that. If they want to go out and buy an individual studio that's independently owned, I don't think anyone's going to shut that down. But a publisher, I just think that the scrutiny would be too intense. But I could be wrong. You never know. I could be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. Jose Taco, do you think that if it wasn't for Square Enix and Insomniac, PS5 would be lacking exclusives? Oh, I mean, we have to be honest. It would be an absolute disaster for Sony. Square Enix and Insomniac have really helped carry exclusivity on the PlayStation 5. We got, Forspoken on PS5 as an exclusive. We have Final Fantasy 16 on PS5 as an exclusive. You have Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth coming up, which is a big exclusive. And Insomniac have put, Miles Morales on this console. That was an exclusive. They've got Spider-Man 2 coming. That's an exclusive. And they've got, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I mean, that right there that I just mentioned, that's 6 games. That's 6 exclusives that just coming from Insomniac and Square Enix. So it's not like they would have nothing if not for Insomniac and Square Enix. We've seen Horizon, we've seen God of War, but imagine what the visual output would look like if you had 6 less exclusives on PS5 since launch. I mean, it would look a lot different. So I'm not saying like hardware sales, but I'm saying in terms of like the way people think about Sony and PlayStation having lots of exclusive games. Yeah, I mean, Square Enix and Insomniac have been massively pivotal for them this generation. So yeah, no doubt about it. There's no doubt. Highlander says, I think Mikey Barrow will replace Bobby Kotick. It's possible. It's definitely possible. That's definitely possible. Hamish Lee Ford has re-upped his channel membership for 6 months. Thank you so much, Hamish. That means you've been a channel member since the very first month, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that 6 months ago is when I started channel memberships. 6 months and counting. Love your streams and tweets, dude. Keep up the good work and hope you are doing great. Like I've been saying, I'm definitely doing better. I'm past the deepest trenches of the badness I had this year. There's not a doubt in my mind now. I've had a couple weeks now where I'm making steady improvement. So I think the worst of it's behind me. I'm going to start, getting back to being more consistent on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So I appreciate that, Hamish. I appreciate, all of the kindness from everybody. I get a ridiculous amount of support. Blows my mind. Let's see. Yeah, logical error. Maybe FromSoft don't want to make an exclusive. It's entirely possible. Because that's actually been my argument in the past. My argument in the past has been maybe Bloodborne 2 has never happened because FromSoftware is just fully committed now to making big, giant multi-platform games. But I want to say that like a year or two back, that someone from I can't remember who, but I'm pretty sure someone from said they'd actually be interested in returning to Bloodborne, but it's up to Sony. Now, I could be misremembering this quote. I thought I heard someone say that, not like a rumor monger, but like actually FromSoftware. I thought I remembered hearing them say that, and if that is the case, then Sony should be greenlighting this game just like now. Like there shouldn't be any wait. Like the minute that internally was like, hey, Sony, let's make Bloodborne 2, I would be like, here you go. Here's the contract. So, to me, that just depends. If it's from Software side, like the reason we've never gotten Bloodborne 2 is because From outright don't want to make it. I actually think that's understandable because they're out there pumping out giant multi-platform games now. Look at how much Dark Souls 3 sold. Look at how much Elden Ring sold. Look at how much Sekiro sold. So if it's coming from their side, I actually completely get it. My big issue with no Bloodborne 2 has always been is if this is coming from Sony's side. If it's coming from Sony's side, it's just bad business. But if it's coming from, I actually think it's understandable. And yep, logical error and Jose are pointing out that Titanfall 2 had a terrible release date sandwiched between Call of Duty and Battlefield. Yeah, that was horrible. That was a horrible launch date. Oh, Blazing Flame. Benji, you misunderstood my question. I'm asking about expanding studios PlayStation currently owns first party. Oh, so the ones they currently own, should they grow them? Yeah, I would try and position every first party studio to a 2-game studio. And I know that's easier said than done. I'm sure many people, if they watch the stream or, work at Naughty Dog or something, because, I do have devs that watch the stream. I'm sure they laugh at me when I say that. I'm sure they're like, Benji, you don't understand the logistics of how hard it is to have a studio making 2 AAA games simultaneously. And I would say, you are absolutely correct. I do not know how to manage that, how to run that, not in any way, shape, or form. But I'm just saying, if I was at Sony leadership, I would invest the sort of money it takes to make that happen. Because we're in a position right now where some of these studios, you might see like one brand new game per gen from them, right? Like we might get one new Naughty Dog game this generation. Yes, we got The Last of Us Part 1, but it was a remake. There's rumors of The Last of Us Part 2 remastered, apparently, from LinkedIn. But again, that's like a remaster. It sounds like the multiplayer game has been completely canceled. And let's be honest, their next game is years away. Like, you might get one new Naughty Dog game this generation. That's just not a great spot to be in. And I'm not saying that it's Naughty Dog's fault or anything, but, like, if it takes more staff and it takes more, whatever you got to do, again, I'd be leaning on Insomniac's learnings heavily because they do know how to do this. They do it all of the time. They have multiple games in development. I would try and get each one of those studios to be a 2-game studio at all times. That doesn't mean that I'm not saying like, 2 games as in like they're just constantly pumping out a game every year or not. No, games are still going to take 5-6 years to make. But I mean, have them offsetting each other to where instead of one Naughty Dog game maybe every 7 years or something, you're going to get, maybe a new Naughty Dog game every 3 years. It's not going to be the same people necessarily making it, but within the same studio and the same culture. I'd really try and find a way to do that if I was Sony. But, easier said than done. But I think it'd be very, very beneficial to them. Very beneficial. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Phil said he wants to do Guitar Hero remake. Will you get it? Think WoW will join PC Game Pass. Think it might come to Xbox. WoW now supports gamepads. Actually, all great questions, Highlander. Thanks for that super chat. So, Guitar Hero Remake, if they make it, will I buy it? Yes, I will buy a new Guitar Hero. It's been a long time since I've had a Guitar Hero. I had a blast with it back in the day. I play guitar in real life. It's fun. So, yeah, if it's good quality, like if they bring Guitar Hero back and it's like super good quality, that would be a lot of fun. If it's got a great soundtrack, lots of songs, sure, yeah. And I know that Bobby Kotick hinted at Guitar Hero coming back too. So it seems that that's real. And as long as it's quality, right, it can't be just some really, really like trashy, cash grab. But if it's a good new Guitar Hero, sure, I'd totally buy it. Think WoW will join PC Game Pass? See, this is a great question. I suspect you will see all expansions hit Game Pass. Like, that would not surprise me, all already released ones. I don't know if every future expansion will be day one. It would probably be a delayed thing, I would guess, where, like, you have to buy the expansion for the first year, and then after that it hits Game Pass. I could see something like that. But all of the already released expansions, I could see those hitting Game Pass at some point. The thing I'm doubtful on is that they're going to roll the subscription into Game Pass. I see a lot of people saying, they're going to take the WoW subscription, put it on Game Pass to attract, subscribers to Game Pass. That one I'm a little more iffy on. I just don't know if it'll financially make the most sense to do that. So I could see a situation, like I said, where all the old expansions instantly hit it. Future expansions maybe a year after launch. But I kind of still think they're going to keep the actual WoW sub separate from Game Pass. But we'll have to see. And will WoW come to console? I actually think it will, yes. As long as WoW stays popular, and there's no indication that it will ever die because this game has been around for a long time, I think that Microsoft will push them to put WoW on console. Yeah, I 100% expect that. I don't know if you're going to see it in 6 months, right? That would probably take quite a bit of time. But I think that's almost a 100%. Yeah, at some point you're going to see WoW on console. I'm almost certain of it. I mean, look at what they've done with Age of Empires. I know completely different genres, but Age of Empires for decades was a PC only game, and now it is on console. You see things like Final Fantasy XIV be ultra successful on PlayStation. I am very, very confident Phil is going to push for WoW to come to Xbox. Yes. But how long that will take, who knows? It could take quite a long time, but I do expect it. Kellegrim, what's up, Kellegrim? Great to see you. He says, I agree, Split End. You don't buy Activision for new projects. Just depends. Call of Duty is without a doubt the most valuable thing there. But it depends, man. New IPs can be massive too. It just depends. But I will say I don't expect them to slow down on Call of Duty. There's just too much money to be made there. MD has been a channel member for 6 months. Thank you, MD. You're another one that's been a channel member since the day I started them. Benji, thoughts on the crazy UFC shakeup? Also, who you got, Dylan Dennis or Logan Paul? Okay, some fun questions. So I'll run through this pretty quickly for non-MMA / combat sports fans. But listen, if anyone knows me, they know I love combat sports as much as I love gaming. So it'll be quick. Don't worry. Hold your horses. So thoughts on the UFC shakeup? Okay, so listen, anyone who saw, Islam versus Volkanovski 1, that was just an unbelievable fight. As of now, it's still my fight of the year. Maybe there was some fights this year that were a little more wild, a little more crazy. But if you want to talk about the perfect combination of skill, technique at the highest level while still being action-packed and exciting, I think Islam versus Volkanovski 1, fight of the year 2023 so far. So obviously, I'm going to be incredibly hyped about seeing a rematch of that. The only downside here is that, Volkanovski's coming in on short notice, 11 days notice, and he's coming off of surgery. So you got to wonder what sort of condition Volkanovski's going to be in for this fight physically. We know he, in my opinion, he's the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Some people are going to have John Jones. Some people are going to have Islam. But to me, it's Volk. I think Volk is the most skilled fighter in the world right now. So you can never count out somebody like that because his skill level is just off the charts. But man, that's such short notice plus coming off of surgery. If anyone can do it, it's Volk, but it's going to be a hard fight. Islam is an absolute beast. He's a monster, and Islam won the first fight, right? And that was with Volk with a full training camp. So I expect Volkanovski to be much more aggressive than the first fight and really going for the knockout early. That's what I expect. I think he's going to come out there and instantly rev the engines because I don't know Volk. Volk is known as a cardio machine. He is, but short notice, 5 grueling rounds with Islam. Who knows if he can make it that deep, right, without gassing. So I think Volk is going to be trying to get that knockout in early. In regards to the co-main event, listen, Paulo Costa is a really, really fun dude. He's hilarious on social media. He is controversial to say the least, but the guy is very, very popular. But in terms of a fight, I think Usman replacing him is far more interesting. Like in just terms of pure interesting levels, you've got, in my opinion, the second best welterweight of all time. Number 1 is George St. Pierre. Dana keeps trying to say it's Usman. It's not. It's George St. Pierre. He's the best welterweight to ever fight. But Usman's number 2. He's the second best welterweight ever, which is still incredible. And you got him moving up in weight. I think he's a much more interesting style matchup for Khamzat because Khamzat obviously has incredible wrestling, and Paulo Costa is a physical beast. Good takedown defense, but he's not exactly a wrestler. So I kind of felt like that fight might be competitive early, but it might turn into, just kind of a wrestling smash fest from Khamzat. Khamzat's going to have much more trouble taking down Kamaru Usman. Usman's a phenomenal wrestler. So very, very interesting. In regards to Dylan Dennis or Logan Paul, listen, both of these guys have almost no boxing skills to speak of. Listen, could they outbox me? Sure. Either one of them could knock me out. But if we're talking about high level, boxing, neither one of these guys have anywhere near it. But at least I would say Logan has some boxing experience while Dylan has 0. I know a lot of people are rooting for Dylan, but the reality is I think Logan's going to knock him out. I don't think it'll even be a decision. I think it'll be a KO. I think Logan is obviously on steroids. He's much, much, much larger, and he has some boxing experience. All of those things factored together, I would say he knocks Dylan Dennis out. All right. Let's hit some more free questions, because I haven't gotten to many of those yet. And in regards to the poll, guys, right now I asked the poll that came from Hamish, will we see more diversity of games from Activision after the acquisition? 59% say yes, more non-Call of Duty games. 41% say no, Call of Duty machine keeps rolling. Yeah, I'm like somewhere between the two. I think the focus is still obviously going to be on Call of Duty, but I do think Microsoft might allow a few more games to slip out of there than what Bobby Kotick was doing. So I'm personally not expecting this like massive rush of like all of a sudden, you know what, we're slowing down so much on Call of Duty that we can now make, 10 new non-Call of Duty games at our studios. I'm not expecting that, but I think we'll see a bit more than what was currently happening. All right, let's run a poll on that new PlayStation. I'll say, do you have any interest in new PS5 model? I'll say yes, not a current PS5 owner. So you don't have one yet, and you're going to buy the new one. We'll say yes, replacing my launch or my current PS5. We'll say no, already own a PS5. And we'll say no, not interested in PlayStation. All right. Where we at? Casual Gamer, do you think PlayStation will continue to partner with second-party and some third-party studios to make PlayStation exclusives? Absolutely, especially out of Japan. Regardless of the CEO, do you see them continuing to acquire second-party studios and some third-party? So we talked about acquisitions already. In regards to are they going to still keep getting third-party exclusives? Yes, that seems to be a big strategy for them, especially out of Japan. I don't expect the next Persona game to be exclusive. I think Atlas is pretty much all in on fully multi-platform now, or at least heavily multi-platform. That seems to be pretty obvious, considering how much Persona they're putting on Xbox now. So you never know. Maybe Sony did get timed exclusivity on Persona 6, but I'm personally expecting that to launch day and date on PlayStation and Xbox. But will they keep signing exclusives? Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, we got to be honest. Just look at how many of the upcoming announced exclusives are coming from third party. I mean, you've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which we already talked about. We've got Rise of the Ronin. We've got Stellar Blade. We've got Death Stranding 2, technically. I know some people are going to be like, that's, a Sony game because Sony owns the engine and, they do the Death Stranding IP and stuff. Listen, Death Stranding is a bit of a weird game. I consider it a first-party game. I do consider it that, but I do not consider Kojima Productions a first-party studio. They're a third party. They're making an Xbox exclusive, for goodness sakes. So at the end of the day, even if Death Stranding 2 is considered a first-party game, and I consider that too, it's still a third-party studio making it. So, a lot of their upcoming exclusives are coming from third parties. So, yeah, I don't expect that to slow down at all. Sony's going to keep signing games like that. Microsoft is going to start having to depend on that a lot less just because sheer volume of studios they own now. But for Sony, they just don't own anywhere near the same amount of studios, and they got to get exclusives from somewhere. So, yes, don't expect that to slow down. Dangerman1337, Benji, just after Hyenas was canned, quite a few Total War Warhammer 3 hotfixes have been coming in. Almost undeniable that Creative Assembly threw resources at a failing live service. Totally. You know, people bring up, I only keep talking about how dangerous live service is because you guys keep asking me about it, right? I'm sure some people, maybe even some industry people that might watch the stream every once in a while, I'm not saying everyone does, but I've been told it's from them that some people do. They probably get sick of me railing on about how live service is so dangerous. But listen, I only keep bringing it up because you guys keep asking about it. And yes, no one should be surprised. That's part of why Ubisoft has been in massive turmoil for the last few years. It's not exactly a mystery why Ubisoft went off the rails and their stock completely collapsed and their game output completely collapsed for years. You can just see it with the decision making they did whenever they decided, oh, we're all in on live service and free to play now. That didn't work out. Now, I'm not saying that some of these Ubisoft games might find some success, but it caused a complete catastrophe for years. So yeah, live service is risky, man. It's so risky. Timmer, hope you're doing well, Benji. No question today. Great to see you, Timmer. I'm doing much better. Zinfamous, great to see you, Zinfamous. I feel like I haven't seen you in a little bit. I always like seeing you in chat, Zinfamous. I know you're another big MMA fan like me. Hey, Benji, based on what's official and guessing, what does first party look like for Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo in 2024? Also, UFC 294 got shaken up, huh? Predictions for the main and co-main. Okay, I gave my thoughts on the fights, but I didn't give a prediction, so I will do that. And then Zinfamous, also, is it just me or did Mortal Kombat 1 come and go quicker than expected? Great stuff, Zinfamous. So let's go one at a time. What does first party look like for Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo? Xbox, we kind of already know, right? They've got Hellblade 2. They've got Towerborn. They've got Flight Sim. And was there one other one confirmed for next year or not? I don't think so. I think those are the three that are confirmed, right? Maybe I'm missing one. Towerborn. I feel like I'm missing one. Hellblade 2. Flight Sim. I'm probably missing one. But we know those three, and they've heavily hinted that there is others coming. What year did Forza Horizon 4 release? I would expect probably, wasn't that 2021? 22, 23, 20. I think Forza Horizon 5 might get, 6 might get a 4-year dev cycle. So I can't see Forza Horizon squeezing in there. It's a possibility. We've seen 3-year dev cycles for Forza Horizon in the past, but I feel like this is going to get a 4-year dev cycle. So I think Forza Horizon 6 will be 2025. The Coalition need a new game out. I don't think it's going to be here. I think that's also 2025, but it's a shame because Gears 5 was when? They unfortunately took too long to make their next game. And I know there's a lot of reasons for that, but you know, it's going to be too long. So Gears 5 was 2019. If that game is 2025, you know, that's 6 years. You guys know I'm not a fan of 6-7 year dev cycles at all. So again, is Gears 6 next year? Unlikely. I don't think there's a massive Xbox game squeezing in there, but I think they will have something else smaller squeeze in. Nintendo, they're launching a new console next year, so expect a banging output from Nintendo next year. Nintendo is going to go crazy, right? They're going to be launching Switch 2, and they're going to want big software to launch alongside that thing. It's too soon for a new Zelda in terms of a big 3D Zelda. Could there be some sort of Zelda project for it, like a smaller scale one? Sure, maybe. I would expect Metroid Prime finally. I think Metroid Prime is going to be a launch title or a launch window title. So Metroid Prime, maybe a new Mario Kart. We'll have to see. They're going to have a lot. They're going to launch that new console with some major software. They'd be crazy not to. PlayStation is the one that looks the weakest on paper. I kept thinking maybe Death Stranding 2 is next year, but I don't know. That could be 2025 as well. PlayStation is in the most concerning spot right now because they have almost nothing announced. So probably that Last of Us Part 2 remaster, considering that came from a Naughty Dog employee. I don't see why they'd lie about that. So Last of Us 2 remaster's got to be there. Isn't that one live service game confirmed for next year? The one from Firewalk, Concord. Didn't that get a 2024 release date? So you've got Concord. Man, but I'll tell you what, in terms of big flagship single-player games, the games that PlayStation fans love out of first party, looking concerning. It is looking concerning for next year. You're going to get some big third-party exclusives, but, you know, a little worrying. Predictions for the main and co. Listen, I love Volkanovski. I actually want Volkanovski to win this fight. I just think it's too tall of a task. If Volk got a full training camp and was fully prepared physically for this fight, I might even predict him to win. But I just think it's too short notice. I think he'll be very competitive early on, and then Islam will take over the fight, you know, probably in that like third, fourth, and fifth round. I see him really taking over the fight, potentially even finishing Volk. I can't see him finishing him with a knockout. I can't see him finishing him with, you know, TKO. Volk, I think, is too tough for that, but maybe Volk finally gets submitted. I could see it, actually. So I'll pick Islam in the main. The co-main event to me is a wild card, because this is the fight where we find out how legit Hamzat Chimaev is. He's had all this hype. He's had some incredible performances. He's never beaten anyone like Kamaru Usman. And yes, I know that he beat Gilbert Burns, but he beat Gilbert Burns in an all-out war where Hamzat was destroyed by the end of it. And, you know, that was someone that Kamaru knocked out in the second round. So, Kamaru's also coming in on short notice, but there's heavy indications from a lot of people that he's been training for quite some time for a fight. I expect Kamaru to be way more physically prepared, for example, than Volkanovski is, because Kamaru's been trying to get a fight. He was trying to get Bilal Muhammad. Bilal turned that fight down. He was trying to fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You know, that fight didn't get together. He's been training. So I'm gonna do something wild. I'm gonna pick Kamaru Usman. Probably not a smart pick, but I don't know, man. I look at that Gilbert Burns fight and I get a lot of questions about Hamzat Chimaev. Gilbert's a beast, so it's not like it's any, you know, disgrace him getting dragged into an all-out war with him. But if Usman's at really good shape, I don't know. I'm picking Kamaru. All right, let's see. Where are we at? Was there any new super chats? Any new channel members? Oh, yeah, Avowed. How could I forget Avowed? Avowed's next year. Good call, guys. Samuel says Avowed. Big Fresh says Avowed. David. Yes, I knew I was forgetting one. I was sitting there and I'm like, dude, I know that there's a fourth Xbox game. I'm just forgetting. Thank you, Avowed. Duh. This will be a fun poll. All right, I'm going to run another poll. This isn't console worry, so don't look at this as console worry. I'm just curious what you guys think. I asked, not this part, the next poll I'm going to run, because it ties into what I was asked. First of all, to end this poll, I asked, do you have any interest in the new PS5 model? And 7% say yes, not a current PS5 owner. 7% say yes, replacing my current PS5. 58% say no, already own a PS5, so more than half of you already got PS5s. And then 27% of you just aren't interested in PlayStation, so you're not going to get it. Okay, this is a fun poll. Don't take this console war, you guys. Don't console war over it. Just think about it logically. Think about what's on the calendar. Who has the best first-party output in 2024? Now, guys, we'll say who will have. Keep in mind, we don't know the full release slate. So this is not based off the games that are announced. Just your gut feeling. Who's going to have the best first-party output in 2024? Xbox? PlayStation? Nintendo? Again, 2024 is very incomplete in terms of first-party lineup. But your gut feeling, looking at the studios, looking at who might be ready, looking at what games might be ready, I'm so curious what you guys think about this one. Where we at? Highlander with a 2. I want Master Chief Armor in Call of Duty or Doom Guy. Dude, what is going on with Microsoft dropping the ball on cross-promoting the franchises they own now? I keep saying this. Why is the Doom Guy armor not in Halo Infinite? What is happening there? Like, they're so bad about this. They own so many franchises now. They should be doing this cross-promotion stuff all over the place. I know they do a bit of it in Sea of Thieves, but like they should be heavily advertising this. They should be dropping Forza skins for cars. They should be having Doom Guy in Halo. They should be having Master Chief in Call of Duty. I mean, they should be doing all this. It's just money. So you don't even have to license it to anyone. You own these franchises. Like, do it. Go. So, yes, Highlander. Having Master Chief Armor in Call of Duty would be a blast because it would be so wild to see those two franchises finally linked together. There was a period of time where it was like, are you a Halo person or a Call of Duty person? I can remember those days before Fortnite and before all of that stuff. Like, those were the premier shooters. And it would be wild to see some crossover there. So should they? 1,000,000%. Will they? I think this is an area Microsoft's been dropping the ball, so we'll have to see. Like, why is one of the seasons of Halo not, as you rank up, you get, like, the Doom Guy stuff in the Battle Pass? It's just crazy. But it's not there. You have to ask these questions. So, I'd love to see it, though. We'll see. Let's see. Was there some channel member stuff in here that I've missed? Yeah, Kellegrim. I think new games coming from Activision is more a matter of time. Yeah, got to earn some of that money back on the flagship first. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't expect, like, in the next 2 years, you see, like, all of a sudden 20 new Activision games that aren't Call of Duty. I agree. It's going to be one of those things that's a long play. Jose Taco, don't forget to talk about Best Buy axing physical movies next year. Pretty crazy, guys. I've been having some of this talk and debate in my, small private Discord I'm in. So in terms of physical movies and TV and series, it's truly on its deathbed, right? Best Buy is going to straight up stop carrying it. There are multiple Targets now that are also not carrying it. That's two big box retailers in the United States. It's just on its way out. Streaming really killed all physical on movies and TV. And I've been debating with some people about, the future of physical games. Now, Best Buy has not gotten rid of physical games yet. But we are seeing retailers start to shrink down that physical space for games too. There's a big wonder in my head about if the next consoles ship with a disc drive or not. I know some people are going to be very, very positive that, they're definitely going to. There's no way that they would ever drop a disc drive, completely out of a console. But the reality is we keep seeing digital decrease. And keep in mind, next gen is not close. Next gen is targeting 2028. That's still 5 years from now. Man, I don't know. I have a feeling that the flagship, the main consoles on PS6 and next Xbox are not going to ship with disc drives. I just do. And now, here's what I'll say. I don't think that necessarily means that there's no way to play physical games on the next consoles. Maybe they're going to do kind of like what Sony's doing right now with the PS5, where there's some sort of attachable disc drive you can buy separately after the fact. But I have a suspicion that the next-gen Xbox and PS6 out of the box are going to be digital-only platforms that you can maybe buy the attachable disc drive for. I don't know. I just feel like that the industry's really going to push for it. But I could be wrong. Jacob Novick, how long do you think it takes until Xbox buys a smaller studio their next buy? We know they have acquisition plans before ABK, which was a few smaller studios. It'll take some time to integrate Activision. That's going to be a massive ordeal. I do think you'll see them buy a studio potentially next year, though. Nothing more this year. I'd be surprised, though, if we go through all of 2024 without them buying a single studio. I think they'll buy someone in 2024, yeah. Kellegrim, not sure if it got covered in the chat last week, but I saw that Unity has a new CEO. Yeah, Riccatello is gone. What a colossal mess up. You think this will help with the recent backlash they're getting? Unity is now in a prove it mode. They have completely burned so many bridges over the decision making that they made with the development community that they still have a lot of ground to make up. So just instantly getting rid of Riccatello and putting a new CEO in, I don't think that's going to instantly fix all of the bridges they burned, because a lot of people in the development community were very upset about this. So, I don't know if they're dead overnight. They might be able to claw their way back and stuff like that. But I would say it was the right move. Listen, I never want to root for anyone to lose their jobs. But that choice was so bad that, listen, I never want someone to lose a job because I've been through it and how painful that can be. But actions do have consequences. And when you make a decision that bad, you got to have a consequence for it. So getting rid of him was the correct call. But we'll have to see. That's going to be something that we're just going to have to watch. Kellegrim. They really messed up bad. Anthony M. Johnson. What's up? Anthony M. Johnson, channel member, hasn't gotten a question answered yet. Aloha from Hawaii. Oh, I'm jealous, man. Hawaii's got to be incredible right now. How do you feel about the state of mid-tier gaming? Indie studios are closing across the board, and reports are saying investors are not interested in smaller games. Yeah, it's dangerous right now. Dangerous. You're seeing the major publishers, more than ever, doubling down on big brands. I am always on every one of these earnings calls with every one of these, big publishers, and they're all talking about it, right? And you guys are seeing that play out in real time too, right? We've talked about this before. Ubisoft's making Star Wars games. Ubisoft's making, Assassin's Creed games. They're making Avatar games, right? Big brands. You're seeing EA now even, they're focusing on Battlefield, and they, not that they always have, but now they're also focusing on Marvel, right? They're making Iron Man games. They're making Black Panther games. It's all about big brands. Here's the problem. Games got too expensive. They got too expensive. And now every single roll of the dice for these companies is hundreds of millions of dollars. And that is so risky. So and now you're talking about smaller budget, right? Here's the problem. Whenever you have the biggest players in the space able to throw so many resources at these games that cost hundreds of millions, it's a lot harder for smaller games to stand out against them, right? Now, this has always been a problem, right? It's always been the debate between indie and AAA, but I feel like that's getting even more accelerated, and especially for the mid-tier. I think indie can still be successful. I think that mid-tier, though, that you're talking about, like the Embracers, I think that is tricky. I think that's a tricky place to be in. I feel like right now you've either got to be very small budget indie or you've got to be very big budget AAA. And unfortunately, there's just not much space in between for these games that aren't, as cheap as an indie game, still cost millions of dollars, but they're not these hundreds of millions, because people are going to look at those mid-tier. Most people don't look at an indie game and compare it to The Last of Us, right? Yes, there's going to be some of that, but most people understand, oh, this is a small indie game. But let's look at something like Lords of the Fallen or some of these Embracer games. People are going to look at those and compare them to the big giant budget AAA games. And unfortunately, usually that comparison does not go well for the mid-tier. So tough spot to be in, I think, right now. I think that's a tough spot to be, especially mid-tier, even more than indie. I think it's just dangerous, which is unfortunate. I don't think that's a good thing for the industry, but that's where I feel like we're at. Anthony, this is supposed to be a poll that just don't think too much about it. Anthony says, I think this is an unfair poll question. Should be who will have the best console exclusives to make the question interesting. This isn't really like one of those polls that's scientific. I'm just making this poll out of pure fun. It's supposed to be just a fun thing. Looking at them, who do you just got the gut feeling is going to have the best first party output? You know what I mean? So just don't think about it too much. And let's see where the poll's at right now. I'm going to be honest. I'm surprised by this. I am surprised by the current poll results. So I asked you, who will have the best first-party output in 2024? Leading the way by a large margin. I'm going to be real with you guys. I did not expect this. 51% are saying Xbox. 24% are saying PlayStation. And 25% are saying Nintendo. That's interesting because if I'm being honest, I think Nintendo will have the best output. And, Nintendo's actually... You guys could be right. Xbox really might take it. But I feel like launching a new console, they're going to have some huge games. But I mean, I could be wrong. Over half the poll thinks it's going to be Xbox. I will say I think it's very likely, and this is like almost the first year I'd say this, and I couldn't even tell you how long. I do think there's a very good chance PlayStation has the worst output, which is a shocker to me to say. I don't know if I ever thought I would say that. But unless Sony have some massive surprises for next year, it does to me look like PlayStation will be in the worst state for first party. Just that year. We're not saying overall, but just 2024 is not looking the greatest. So hopefully they have some big surprises. Joshua B with a 2 super chat. Toys, how long have we been going? Oh, I'm going to still go for like 15, 20 minutes. Toys for Bob Banjo game? It's been too long. I'd love to see Banjo-Kazooie come back. It's one of those people have asked for forever. I think Banjo could successfully come back with the right budget. So back to what we were talking about, when I was talking with Anthony M. Knight here, and we were talking about how dangerous like mid-tier is and like non-giant brand games right now. I think I said this in the last chat or the chat before. This is going to become very important for first party. Third party are going to become more and more scared of making new IPs, of making risky games because the budgets are so large. They live and die by how games sell. Platform holders are not in the same spot. Obviously, they want their first party games to be profitable, but they're also making money off of subscriptions, and they're making money off of their storefront where they get a cut of every single thing that's sold. Some hardware sometimes is profitable. Nintendo makes money off of the Switch hardware. Not always the case. Usually, though, deeper into a cycle, hardware itself starts getting profitable, even for PlayStation and Xbox, but I don't know if that's going to happen this gen. We'll have to see. But even potentially some hardware profits down the line. Like, they have a lot of extra ways to make money that these publishers don't necessarily have. So it's, in my opinion, it's going to really come down to these first parties to carry these riskier projects, these new IPs. Like, they're going to have to be the source of it because they're the ones who can roll the dice and risk that on an individual game basis. So listen, do I think Banjo can come back and be a game that sells 10 million units? I'm just going to be real. No, I don't. But do I think if they make a smartly budgeted Banjo game that could get good engagement through Game Pass? Sure. Yeah, I would say if they could find the right studio to make it, not put too much money into it, I'd love to see Banjo come back. And I think it could be a successful thing, but the expectations would have to be realistic. They can't come out here and give Banjo, $150 million budget because they ain't going to make their money back. But if they can do it, with a smart budget, sure. Yep, Split End. EA just dropped Immortals of Avium and It Takes Two at their Originals program. They've been very supportive of smaller projects. That's true, Split End, but I've got some terrible news for you. I was on the last earnings call for EA, and they kind of hinted they're moving away from that. It's a bummer to hear, I know. But they were talking about it during their earnings call, and they said that they are going to reassess their Originals program and make smart choices. What that says to me is that you are not going to probably see many more projects like Immortals of Avium. So are they going to keep doing some of that original stuff? Absolutely, right? I'm very confident that, they're going to be, still partnering with Hazelight and doing smaller games on there still. I think like the indie size stuff for sure. I don't know that you'll ever see a game like Immortals again from EA Originals, where it was a pretty expensive game from all indications and completely bombed. They straight up said on that earnings call that they were going to assess their originals and make smart profitability choices. That to me is a sign of, hey, this ain't doing so good for us right now. So I know it hurts, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of it, man. Telegram, if Nintendo goes crazy on first-party games, I would love to see a new Metroid Prime entry. Well, Telegram, it's happening. Metroid Prime 4. It was announced, what is it, like 7 years ago now? I don't remember. Less than that. But Prime 4 is coming, yeah. Yep. And I expect that to be next year. Well, Anthony, the debate here is about first party. Like I said, I think you're just overthinking it a bit. You say, this is why I don't like the question. Next year might be one of the best years for PlayStation ever. It won't be because of first party, but that doesn't matter because of exclusive agreements. Yeah, but we're assessing just the first party. Like, that's it. Like I said, just don't think that much about it. It's just who's first party. That's it. Just the first party. Who do you think is going to be better? It's not like... Listen, this is a random poll on a guy with less than 5,000 subscribers. It's more just supposed to be a fun thing. All right. Going to hit a few more free questions and some other stuff. We'll still go for about 10 minutes, and then I got to go. Logan Hardy, hi Benji. Xbox is having troubles managing their current studios with Bethesda, and now they have Activision on top of that. Yeah, it could be a problem. Do you think they have too much on the table? Also, Phil says bringing games to more players, but going through acquisitions of both Sony and Xbox so far, Xbox is the one taking games away from PS players than the other way around. Stay happy. Depends on how you look at it. So it just depends. So in regards to the first part, could they have issues with managing Activision Blizzard on top of all this? I would say yes. That is absolutely potentially possible. Like, think about how many studios they now own. It's actually crazy. Like, if you actually add up the total number, whenever you look at Activision, when you look at Bethesda, when you look at just Xbox Game Studios, I mean, it's almost staggering how many studios they own. That is an insane amount of employees, and that is a ton of leadership change you have to have all across the world, by the way. So is there potential for that to go catastrophically bad? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, it doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but is the potential there? Oh, it's absolutely there. I said this before when I was asked this. Like, Phil's number one priority right now to me isn't even about Xbox hardware, isn't about, how is X game performing. Like, to me, Phil's number one priority right now should be getting the strongest leadership chains absolutely imaginable across all of these studios, because that is going to impact everything. They have to have rock solid, concrete, incredible leadership across the board, or this thing could go very sideways, yes, just because of the sheer size of it. It's going to be very hard for someone like Phil to keep track of everything, right? He can only do so much. He's one person, right? So that means he's got to have very, 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 very great people across the board managing things. So that needs to be Xbox's number one priority. So yes, we'll see. And then Phil says bringing the more games to more players thing. It just depends. It really just depends on how you look at it. The question is can Microsoft find success with all of these other places they're putting games now, right? Can they start to get tons of engagement through browser apps on, Samsung TVs and phones, and like the theoretical idea that they could reach more people than before the acquisition is actually true, even if they cut out PlayStation 100%. We're talking the theoretical, guys. I'm not saying it will, because I have doubts, But theoretically, is the statement accurate? Sure. Theoretically, the statement is accurate because Microsoft puts their games so many places now, and you can access them in so many ways. Will that pan out? A lot more questionable, But it's marketing speak. That's all it is. It's marketing speak. These companies say stuff all the time. It's just marketing. Marvel Fanatic. If Disney do acquire a publisher like EA, did you guys see this story? Apparently Bob Iger is being pressured to buy EA or some other giant publisher and get involved in gaming. Very interesting. If EA do acquire a publisher like EA or open a gaming division, do you see them ending all third-party licensed games agreements, moving it all in-house? If that happens, is Spider-Man 3 canceled? Here's what I'll say, Marvel. I, at the end of the day, feel like they're not going to do this. I totally see why Bob Iger is being pressured to do this, because I'll tell you something, people in Hollywood are starting to realize how much money video games makes. Now, for all of us in this bubble, we've all known how much money gaming makes for forever. But Hollywood really is starting to get exposed to this now, really because of Super Mario and The Last of Us. I'm not kidding you. A lot of casual Hollywood people, I'm not talking about people that are in Hollywood that also play games. I'm talking about casuals, people that don't know anything about games. They're just involved in the Hollywood business. Super Mario and The Last of Us were huge wake-up calls on how much money and, viewership these sort of things can generate. And so that makes them look at the video game industry in general, not just, oh, wait, how much could a big show do for us? Now they look over and they say, wait, look at how much Super Mario made, look at how much The Last of Us made. Now that I'm looking and seeing how much this video game industry is making, why aren't we making games? That's why you're starting to see Netflix get involved in games. It's now why you're seeing Bob Iger get pressured to go out and buy a gaming thing. These Hollywood companies, as theaters start to struggle, as there's some difficulties with streaming, they're always looking to make more money. And who's making a lot of money? The video game industry. So I see why Bob Iger is getting that pressure. At the end of the day, though, I just kind of feel like Disney's not going to do it because Disney's not in a good place right now. I feel like they need to get their own stuff figured out first before going out. I mean, EA would be an extraordinarily expensive purchase. I mean, tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars. So, listen, does Disney have the capital that they could do it? Sure, but with their other divisions already struggling, you're seeing Marvel struggle, you're seeing Star Wars struggle, you're seeing Pixar have some struggles. Whenever they already have so much inner turmoil going on, all of a sudden going out and spending tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars on EA, to me, seems not that smart. So Marvel, I get why people are telling Bob to do that, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to happen. Unless all of a sudden Disney gets super healthy. 5 years down the line, if all of a sudden all this is turned around and Marvel's banging and Star Wars is banging and Pixar's out there making billion-dollar films, then they might do it. But right now, I think it's not the right time. Jason Benjamin, do you think Spyro and Crash will become Xbox exclusives? Do you think Microsoft will work on bringing back old licensed Activision games based on Marvel and Transformers? We already talked about Marvel and Transformers. Spyro and Crash becoming exclusive? Maybe. I see some people thinking that Phil has committed that all of Activision Blizzard staying multi-platform, and he has outright never said that. In fact, whenever he was pressured about it in court, he kind of cheekily answered. They said, one of the lawyers was drilling him, and they were saying, can you guarantee, that the next Diablo will be on PlayStation? And he said, I can say that. And he said it in a way of saying he has the power to say that, sure. But that doesn't mean he's going to. Listen, there's no doubt some of these games are going to start becoming Xbox exclusives. That's just the truth. Do I expect many of them to remain multi-platform? Yes. Say that all the time. I expect Overwatch to stay multi-platform. I expect Call of Duty to stay multi-platform. These big games as a service games, I think they'll probably keep, even maybe future entries of them, probably they'll keep those big games as a service multi-platform. But the reality is, these smaller projects, these single-player projects, yeah, some of them are going to start becoming exclusives. They just are. And could that be Spyro and Crash? It is possible, yes. It is possible. I don't think it's a guarantee, but it's absolutely possible. Cameron Swear, updated predictions on Sony's 25 mil goal for PlayStation. I don't think it's happening. I just can't see it. If not, what would your projection be today? Cameron, yeah, they're not going to hit 25 million, I think. I think that's almost certain now. The only way they're going to hit 25 million is if Spider-Man has utterly shocking levels of hardware impact, which could potentially happen, but I started feeling a while ago that it was questionable they could hit 25 million, and now you got a price increase on the digital, and like Joseki said, even increases on the physical in some markets like Japan. I don't see how that's possible they could hit 25 million. I just don't see it. They don't have the software output to get there. They just don't. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen, man. New projection, I don't know. I need to see how stuff starts rolling this holiday, and I need to see what Spider-Man 2 does. But I will say I am highly skeptical of 25 million now. Highly skeptical. Santiago 94, can't wait to play the games on Game Pass. I don't think many games will be exclusive since this is different from Bethesda acquisition. I think, like I said before, games as a service games probably will stay 99% multi-platform or whatever, but you will see exclusives, yes, there's no doubt. You don't spend $70 billion and not make some exclusives. Like, you just don't. So there will be some, yeah. They absolutely are going to be console exclusives from Activision Blizzard. Not a doubt in my mind. But I agree with you. I think you're going to see a lot more multi-platform stuff out of Activision Blizzard than you saw out of Bethesda. Because the reality is most of Bethesda's output is single-player games, right? Every once in a while, they've got a multiplayer project, but the bulk of it is single-player content. That's the sort of stuff to make easier, make a console exclusive than a games as a service. So yes, I do agree. Of the two, comparing Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, definitely you'll see more multi-platform from Activision Blizzard than you saw from Bethesda, for sure. Cookie Cutter, what's your thoughts on PS5 Slim and thoughts on it not being compatible with older faceplates? When do you think PS5 Pro will be announced and released? What specs are you expecting? How many teraflops? Well, a lot of the hardware we actually already know because of Tom Henderson. So I don't remember all. I'm not a tech expert, but we already know kind of the speed of the RAM that's in the thing. We kind of already know, I think, somewhat the GPU output. The main unknowns, as far as I'm aware, of the PS5 Pro is what its CPU capabilities are, what impact the CPU has. I believe that's largely unknown. Now, I could have missed this, but I know we got some information out of GPU, some information out of RAM. I think as of now, though, we don't know anything about the CPU. Like, is it the exact same? What improvements there are in it? So, again, I'm not a tech person. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you those exact details. You can find them, though. Go look up at Tom Henderson's report. When do I think it will be announced and released? Well, it's releasing next year. There's no reason to think that's not true because Tom Henderson has been A+ correct on every piece of PlayStation hardware he's reported on, and he's saying it's holiday 2024, so I'm assuming that's the same thing, next holiday. I expect it to be $600. And when will it be announced? Not for a long time. They have no reason to announce a Pro right now. So they'll announce it pretty late next year. It'll probably be like the PS4 Pro, where it was a very short announcement to release window. They'll probably wait to announce the PS5 Pro until like 3 months before the thing launches. You know, maybe a little longer than that, but I wouldn't expect like a year lead up. I don't think they're going to announce this thing a year before it comes out. Maybe I'm wrong, but they'll probably announce this thing like 3 to 6 months before it releases. And it'll release next holiday. All right, let's check on super chats or channel members that didn't get stuff as we get ready to wind down. Let us see. Where are we at? Tonsi K with a super chat. Has Starfield had a big impact on Xbox? Well, it had some impact for sure. We saw an increase in sales in some markets. Big question is what it did for U.S. impact. I believe we still don't have that data because NPD/Circana always takes forever to come out. If Welfare or someone was here, they could tell you the exact date. Maybe someone in chat actually knows the exact date for this. Because I believe, yeah, that info is definitely not out yet. Let's see. I might have been able to find it on install base exactly when the report is. What is Circana? All right, it'll come out on October 17th. So that's the big question, Tonsi K. The market that would always probably get the biggest impact from Starfield was the US, just because it's Xbox's home territory. It's where Xbox is the most popular. So we have seen some impact from Starfield in some markets, some better than others. I would say it wasn't like a groundbreaking, boost in sales, but we've seen some. The big question is what it did for Xbox in the US. That's going to be the big one to keep your eye on. And that Circana report is going to be out on October 17th. So just a few days. Just a few days we'll know, exactly what it did in the United States. Unfortunately, we won't know exactly because, Circana doesn't release public numbers, but we should, if it's very successful, get some sort of, data on boost impact or something. And then we can probably math it out from there around where it's at. J2 Blue Wonder saying hello and saying Toys for Bob would be perfect for a new Banjo game. In my opinion, that would be hype. That would be hype. I'd love to see it. Danger Man says Immortals and Wild Hearts were a flop. Yep. Unfortunately, neither was super successful. Highlander with a 5 super chat. It's wild. When Phil took over, they had blank studios. I think you forgot to type the number there. Now they are over 32 studios over him. And when he took over, the CEO wanted to axe Xbox. Phil saved Xbox. He did. That's why a lot of people in the Xbox community love Phil. You know, don't get me wrong. He gets criticism within Xbox, and he gets criticism from PlayStation fans. And it's right. A lot of people love Phil. A lot of people love to criticize Phil. But one reason why, because I see sometimes people be like, you know, that aren't Xbox gamers, let's say they're PlayStation gamers or Nintendo gamers. I see some of them be like, why do Xbox fans like have such an attachment to Phil? I feel like he's got the biggest attachment. You know, Jim Ryan never had that connection to the PlayStation community like Phil does to Xbox. And part of it is because exactly what you're saying. Phil did essentially save Xbox. Now, it doesn't mean that he's above criticism for things that have happened after that, right? You could criticize him for whatever you want. It's a free world or whatever, right? You're all entitled to your own opinion. But one reason Xbox fans love the guy so much or appreciate the guy so much is that it is not a mystery. It's not a secret. Satya and Phil have both openly spoke about it. There was a consideration to potentially back out of gaming. And Satya brought Phil in and he said, explain to me why we're in games. And Phil was able to sell Satya on a vision of what Xbox could be and to keep Xbox around. So that's, of course, going to garner huge attachment from the Xbox fan base. So, yeah, that's just the truth. He really did help save Xbox. Now, you know, we can agree to disagree if you like his direction after that, or we can agree to disagree on if it's a good thing what Microsoft's doing. But if it wouldn't have been Phil in charge of Xbox, you know, let's say that when Satya came in there and it was someone else in that leadership position, who knows? There might not be an Xbox now. Not for sure thing, but it's potential. Blazing Flame, I answered that. You said you misunderstood my question. You keep dropping that. I answered that earlier. Yes, I think they are going to. On expanding their studios. Like not buying new ones, expanding the current teams. I answered that, Blazing Flame. Yes, I expect them to do that. J2 Blue, Wonder with a 5 super chat. What game franchise do you think that could benefit from being multi-plat, and what others could benefit from being exclusive? Oh, that's a great question. What's an exclusive game right now that could benefit from being multi-platform? And what's a multi-platform game that could benefit on being an exclusive? Ooh, that is interesting. The reality is the one that would potentially benefit the most from going multi-plat is going to be these first-party games as a service games. So I would say something like Sea of Thieves, right? If Sea of Thieves was also available on Nintendo platforms and was also available on PlayStation, same thing for a game like Grounded, right? Or, you know, any number, Halo. Like any game as a service game, listen, I understand why some of them are kept exclusive, but we're just saying raw numbers for that game, not hardware moving impact, not, you know, strategy for the platform. We're just talking numbers and cents. If you could take a game and instantly make that individual game make more money, it's going to be a games as a service first party title. That's just the reality. Halo, you know, PlayStation doesn't have many of these, so I can't really name PlayStation. The one who's making the most of them, that's a first party, is Xbox. So yeah, it's going to be those games, those Sea of Thieves, those Groundeds, those Forza Horizons, those, you know, all of them. So that's the one that would benefit the most. Now, a multi-plat that could benefit from an exclusive is tougher because in most cases, that's not just the reality. The only games that really would qualify for this is a series that is massively in decline, and you're not sure you're going to even continue making that franchise unless someone pays for it, right? A prime example of this is Bayonetta, right? Both Platinum and Nintendo were open about it. Bayonetta 2 would not have happened unless Nintendo helped fund that game. They've both outright said it. Back when it was all controversial, when they announced Bayonetta 2 as a Switch exclusive, people forget there was a lot of controversy around that. A lot of people were like, why is this not multi-platform? And Platinum were like, because you wouldn't have gotten Bayonetta 2 without Nintendo. So it's going to be something like that. A game that was multi-platform that you probably never would have got a sequel for unless someone funded it and made it multi-plat or made it an exclusive. And, that's a bit hard to say. Bit hard to say, man, off the top of my head. A game franchise that's in that spot right now. God, it's a good question. I don't have one off the top of my head. I don't got one. I don't know. But that's the answer of what game would qualify for that, I would say. JCat, Final Fantasy would benefit from being multi-plat. Absolutely. That's a single-player game that should be multi-platform. I agree. Kelligrim, wouldn't any game benefit from being multi-plat? Yes, for the most part. Like I said, the only exceptions to this are going to be Bayonetta-like situations where the franchise is going to die unless a first party pays to make it an exclusive. But besides that, Kelligrim, yeah, pretty much everything just benefits from being multi-platform outside of scenarios like that. Tiger King. Oh, yeah, love the name. Wishing you an awesome day and weekend. Wishing you an awesome day, Tiger King. Hope you're hyped. Hope you're feeling good. Hope life is rocking and rolling for you, Tiger King. Let's go, Tiger King. This is a good example. Sergeant 12, similar to Street Fighter V. PS helped funding it. Exactly. Those are the games. Outside of that, I've been preaching this for a while. I think there should be almost no third-party exclusives because games are too expensive to make, and you got to make your money back somehow. The only way, if you're a third party, you should be making an exclusive is if the platform holder is heavily funding your game. I mean heavily. I don't mean here's a bonus check of $5 million to make your game exclusive. No. Unless they're heavily funding you, you should not be making exclusive games for any platform. Doesn't matter the platform. There's a few rare exceptions to this. I would say Japanese games on Switch, because Switch is so utterly dominant in Japan that I can understand smaller Japanese teams making Switch exclusives that aren't even like funded by Nintendo. That actually does. That's like one of the really rare exceptions to what I'm saying, because Switch just utterly dominates the Japanese market. And, but these big Western studios and publishers, you really shouldn't be making third-party exclusives. You really shouldn't be doing that. All right, I'm just picking and rolling like 5 more questions and we're out. It's just going to be a quick grab bag. Oh, Blazing Flame, don't sweat it, man. Don't sweat it. Blazing Flame says, I'm sorry, I repeated my question because I had internet connection issues. No problem, dude. Don't sweat it, Blazing Flame. All right, quick grab bag. Quick grab bag, and we got to go. Danger Man, only big publisher taking riskier, smaller projects is Microsoft. Hi-Fi Rush, South of Midnight, etc. I do applaud Microsoft for that. Microsoft right now does seem to be the first party leading the most on risky projects. I would say that is actually true, yes. Yes. Doesn't mean that Sony and Nintendo don't do any of that, but who's doing the most currently? And you also saw things like Pentiment and, Josh Sawyer straight up said Pentiment wouldn't have existed unless Microsoft owned Obsidian. So, yeah, they are doing the best job of that right now. I would agree with that. Coolaps 8, the only worry about going fully digital is leaving customers behind that maybe live somewhere where the internet quality isn't great. I agree. I hope that these next consoles out of the box have disk drives. I'm someone that still primarily buys physical because I get way better deals on them. But I'm just a little concerned with the way things are going that they're going to make the default consoles digital only next gen, where maybe, you know, you can still buy a physical game, but you're going to have to buy that add-on to it just to try and push for that digital, you know, switch. But we'll see. Robert Musio, ciao Benji. What do you think about Sekiro showing up on the video? Any chance of going to Game Pass? Much love from Italy. What is up, Roberto? Love seeing people from all around the world in chat. Answered this earlier. I think there's a very good chance that Sekiro will be in Game Pass, yes. Because the reasoning is Activision owned the publishing rights. Now, they don't own the IP, but they own the publishing rights of the first game. When you own the publishing rights, that means you choose how a game is distributed. So if Microsoft inherited those publishing rights, they should be able to put the game on Game Pass. Yes, because now they are the publisher. So I would assume so. That doesn't mean, though, that they have any say in Sekiro 2 or where that would go. Because as far as we know, that deal was strictly for the publishing of the first game. Doesn't have anything to do with owning the IP or publishing sequels. But Sekiro 1, unless there's something we don't know, should be able to go on Game Pass, yes. All right. Adi, hey Benji, will you open an account on Blue Sky if Blue Sky gets mega popular? You know, I did a couple other ones. I tried to do Threads back whenever, you know, all this was going down. People were worried about Twitter/X collapsing. I know that Blue Sky is getting some engagement, but I'm probably not. Listen, my output on just the platforms I already have has been a disaster this year. So for me to support another one, Blue Sky's got to get super popular. If I see like just tons and tons and tons of people just, you know, getting big engagement and Blue Sky's blowing up and everyone's downloading Blue Sky, and, you know, at that point in time, sure, probably. But as of now, I'm probably not going to do it. All right, last one. I'm picking a random last one and we're out. River Sticks, I'm not sure if you're talking to me. You say you want Xbox to continue buying SHIT? Just let FromSoft keep it. What a strange comment. I don't know if you're talking to me, but if you are, I did not say that I want Xbox to buy Sekiro. That is not something I ever said, but I'm not sure. You could be talking to somebody else. But I never said I want Microsoft to buy them. All right, last one. John Scott, Benji, any idea of Armored Core sales numbers? Did you play it? Totally exceeded my expectations and was much more fair difficulty-wise than I expected. One, I do not have any idea about Armored Core sales. Unfortunately, there's just not much data out about it. Do I think it sold well? I think it sold well for an Armored Core game is how I'll say it. I still expect this Armored Core to be the best-selling Armored Core game ever when all is said and done. But it's not putting up anywhere near, you know, Dark Souls numbers or anything like that. I don't think, unless something shocking comes out. But very well for an Armored Core game. You know, that's a franchise you got to temper your expectations for compared to the other big FromSoftware games. But I think it did well for what it is. It had a good Steam concurrent number. It did over 100,000, I believe. Let's double check that. That's a good sign. For a game like that, that's a good sign. All right, let's see. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you, but I'm pretty sure it went over 100,000. Which, again, for a game like that, great. It did. In fact, it went to 156,000. That's a great sign for a game like that. So, I would say, for an Armored Core game, those sort of expectations, I think it did pretty darn well. I did not play it. I probably will at some point, but it's just been such a freaking busy year. I didn't get a chance to get to it, but I will at some point. All right, guys, I'm going to bounce there. I think I got at least one thing answered for every channel member. Lots of you got many, many, many of them. I think I hit all the super chats. We've been going for a hot minute, so I'm going to bounce. What up? Shout out to Samuel Tolbert in the chat. Just saw Samuel. Samuel's the man. I think we're good. Think we're good. Think we're good. I'm out. I'm out, guys. Peace. Adios. Love you guys. here's my spiel for the end. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. As always, stay safe. Play some games. And I will see you guys very, very soon. On Twitter, on YouTube, who knows? But I'll see you soon. All right, guys. Thanks for another amazing chat. Thanks for all of your support. You're all the best. You all rule. I'm out of here. Let's go.